There is no fan base in more misery right now than the Sacramento Kings. Let's see if we can revive them on this edition of The Nest. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Nest RXP. My name is Robin, welcoming you back as we continue to rebuild each NBA team in their off season, and today we're tackling the Sacramento Kings. So this was a hectic one to try and work with because the Kings are kind of already trying their best to make these rebuilding changes, but there's just teams don't want any of the players that they have. So it's a little bit hectic and it's a little bit troublesome. So we're going to go through and see what we can do to this team. But in the end, I don't know if any of these things are even possible. So we'll see. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Go check out the TikTok, the Instagram as I cover the NBA playoffs. And I do short form content of these videos. So just go follow all that. Go check it out. I'm covering each team. So if you're not a Kings fan, if you're not a Pelicans fan, do not fret. We will have your team coming out soon if it's not out already. So I should probably preface this that all of these moves that I am making, other than the draft picks obviously, are if you can. And even the draft picks as well are like if you can ideas. Because I don't know if any team actually is going to want any of these players I'm going to be trying and trading. But they may be interested in it and they may find a way. And they may find some use out of these players. So, in reality, I don't know if you can make any of these moves, but I do think that at the very least one team might be willing to make these trades. It's just a matter of can you find a team that wants to do it. And you could probably just send out a general like mass email or something, or mass call or something like, hey, all of our players are available. If you want them for cheap, come take them. Because that's ultimately what you need. You just need to get off some of these salaries. You need to get off Domantas Sabonis' salary. Get off Zach LaVine's salary. Get off DeMar DeRozan. Get off all of these people and just start the rebuild. Because you're not going to get picks for them. You're not going to get anything of value. At least, probably not. But we'll get into that in just a second. And we're going to start off with Domantas Sabonis. So Sabonis, in my opinion, might be the player that I don't want to say most teams would want to acquire, but I think he might be the most desirable of all of Sacramento's players that they can probably trade, other than maybe Malik Monk. I think he is one that would probably draw up the most trade value. So I drew up a couple of trades for him, but a lot of them came from other teams' rebuilds that just kind of work out better. Because I don't think there's a legit option where the Kings can actually win a trade, but we shall see. So the first option I drew up was one with the Phoenix Suns, and they acquire Jalen Green, and they only give up Sabonis and 2 second-round picks. This is pretty much a bad contract for a bad contract. Jalen Green's significantly younger, so he may blossom into something a bit better, or you can easily move him. And not easily, but you can have an easier time moving him later on. You do give up 2 second-round picks in order to make it happen. That's why I'm not a terribly big fan of this trade, especially now with the pick they got. They're going to need to draft a guard with that pick, so I don't know if this trade will work out well unless you want to go for like Nate Ament with the 7th pick and kind of reach a bit to try and get him, but I wouldn't do that if I'm the Kings. You don't need another project who's not going to put like passion towards the Kings in that regard. The next trade I drew up was this massive like 4-team trade that it kind of fixed a lot of teams, but I don't think I applied it to any other team's rebuild because it was so complicated and it doesn't really fit any of them perfectly, but it looks something like this. So the Pistons will acquire Julius Randle from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Grizzlies will acquire Domantas Sabonis and just take on his contract, obviously from the Kings. The Timberwolves will acquire Ja Morant as they flip Julius Randle for Ja Morant, and then the Kings will acquire Duncan Robinson and Caris LeVert, and they just get off Domantas Sabonis' contract. I don't know how I feel about this trade. I think it works if you're a Timberwolves fan. You get Ja Morant instead of Julius Randle. I think he fits a bit better. You kind of get, I don't want to say an upgraded version of Ayo Dosunmu, but a higher potential Ayo Dosunmu to run alongside. And if you're the Grizzlies, you obviously just acquired Domantas Sabonis, and you just take on his contract. You may ask for picks or something to take on his contract from the Kings. So that may be the only thing you do not have that I didn't draw up in this trade. And then the Pistons, obviously, you get Julius Randle and you only give up Duncan Robinson, Caris LeVert. Julius didn't have a great series, but I do think he can be a solid second option or third option, really, alongside Cade Cunningham. So I'm not a terribly big fan of this trade overall, but I do think that this is possible, and I wouldn't be mad if they made this trade by any means, especially for the Kings because you're getting off of Sabonis' contract. But I do think this next trade is the most logical and the best fit for all teams involved. And if you're probably gonna recognize this trade because I think I did it in my Clippers video, and I will likely do it in my Warriors video as well, or at least I'll bring it up in my Warriors video. I don't know if I'll actually implement it, but it looks something like this. So the trade would look like the Warriors acquire Kawhi Leonard from the Clippers and Malik Monk from the Kings. The Clippers will acquire Domantas Sabonis, a 2027 first-round pick, and a 2028 pick swap. And then the Kings will acquire Jimmy Butler, Brandon Podziemski, and a 2029 first-round pick. And there's other ways you can do it. You could obviously, instead of doing the 2029 first-round pick for the Kings, the Warriors could probably do it with their first-round pick this year. But I don't think that they would do that. I think they would rather put that off and give it to someone else. Or you could easily do it where the Clippers get the 2026 pick 11, I believe the Warriors have. They get that pick, and then they get the 2027 pick swap or something like that. So there's different ways you can do it, but essentially Clippers get 2 first-round picks, Clippers get 1 first-round pick and a pick swap, and Kings get just the first-round pick. I like this trade. I think this is the best trade because Jimmy Butler's an expiring contract. That's almost $50 million or $50+ million that you're going to be getting off of the books next year. That will be huge for them. You also get a first-round pick, obviously, out of it. And to take on Podziemski's, who's young, and Jimmy Butler's contracts, I think that that's the best way. This is the best trade that you can make. It's a big question if the Warriors make it because that's a lot of picks to be given up, but they get Malik Monk and Kawhi Leonard out of it, so I could see them making a splash for that. And the Clippers, obviously, they get a first-round pick out of it. They get Domantas Sabonis, who he can help them coast a little bit, like I said in my Clippers video. So I like this trade. The next guy I went and looked at trading was DeMar DeRozan, and I think there's a ton of teams that would actually be interested in DeMar DeRozan, but not a ton of teams that might be interested in giving up a ton for him. But the team I actually drew up was the Detroit Pistons once again because they are looking to get that second option alongside Kate Cunningham, and I think DeMar might be an easy, cheap option for them to just go and get and maybe see if Asar Thompson can develop into that true second option because that's what they seeming to want Asar to turn into. But if not, you have DeMar, you get him off the books later on, and then you trade Asar later on, and then you can get an actual second option for Kate. But for now, the trade will look something like this. The Pistons will obviously acquire DeMar DeRozan, and the Kings will simply acquire Karis LeVert, Marcus Sasser, and 3 second-round picks via the Pistons. I like this trade. You get second-round picks, you get off DeMar, you get something back for DeRozan, and you can obviously reroute Karis LeVert again because I think a lot of teams will actually want a veteran guy like Karis LeVert, so reroute him to a third team for some picks or maybe just a young player or something like that. Like I could see the Pelicans trading Jordan Hawkins for Karis LeVert or something like that. I think that would be good. But either way, you just get off Karis LeVert in a third team trade, and then Marcus Sasser, he's a solid backup point guard. He's young. He just matches contract for the most part, but he can be quality for you later on. The next thing I would do is I would try, because you have picks 34 and 45 this year if you're the Kings. I do think that there's a way that you can swap those plus the contract of Precious Achiuwa or the sign and trade rights to Precious Achiuwa, and you can trade him to a team that would better suit him. And I think there's a couple ways you can do it. So first option I drew up was trading him to the Spurs for pick 20. Like I said, sign and trade Precious Achiuwa, pick 34, pick 45, and you get 20 in return. It's not a bad option. If I'm the Kings, definitely would take that. But I don't know if the Spurs would take that because that's still a pretty decently good draft pick, and I don't know if Precious Achiuwa would be worth that even with 34 and 45. You could do the Cavs for same deal, but for 29. I think the Cavs would be interested in that because I think Precious Achiuwa really fits that team. Or Boston for pick 27. Again, same deal. They could get him. He would fit very well with that team. And then Denver's another option. They have 26. So basically, any team that wants to give up one of those late 20s picks that's not rebuilding, that may be in contention, and they want to get an easy guy like Precious Achiuwa who can be versatile and be that big body physical force role player for them. Any team that wants to do it, you can get it. Regardless of which pick you get, whether it's 20, 27, 29, 25, whatever the case may be, I think the guy you should go and get is either Amari Allen or Allen Graves. And I like Amari Allen, and we're going to be talking about the rest of the draft picks in a minute, but I think either way, getting one of those guys would be key because he's just both of them are just athletic wings, forward type beats that you can kind of build, not really build around, but they can be pivotal pieces going forward, and they're developmental projects, and you don't have to invest too much into them going forward. Now, as for Zach LaVine, before we get into like the actual like draft picks, Zach LaVine was like a big question in my eyes because you can't really trade him just yet because he has a player option that he's probably going to accept because it's like $50 million. So what I would do, honestly, if you can't convince him, hey, just take your contract and go, man. Take your contract and go, man. If you can't just get him to leave on his own, or if a team doesn't want to like trade for him after he accepts his player option or something like that, there's two options you can go with. You can either just cut him with his guaranteed money and let him go sign somewhere else because you don't really need him to play either way. Or you could let him play minimum minutes and then trade him sometime in the midseason when teams actually might have some desire to take him. Or just let him expire at the end of the year, whatever the case may be. Regardless, I don't know if Zach LaVine is not going to be a core part of this team, and if anything, he's not going to get minutes in my eyes, or he shouldn't get minutes in my eyes. I'm not saying that he's bad or anything like that, but I do think that you need to figure out, like, okay, Zach LaVine's not part of this future. He's not going to get you anything of value, so there's no real point in doing anything with him. Just either let him walk, cut him, waive him, buy him out, whatever the case may be. Just find a way so that he doesn't clog up minutes for these developmental projects and these young players. And other than that, I think another thing that the Kings should do is try and make offers for some of these young guys like Jonathan Kuminga, like Peyton Watson, like Benedict Mathurin. These guys who they could develop into stars, at least in Kuminga and Watson's case. I do think Mathurin can be a pretty good like sub-star as well. But try and make offers for them. Just try and get another young piece maybe. I don't know if any of those want to. I know Jonathan Kuminga said he and the Kings were linked in the past. I do think that's possible. And especially if you can get off DeMar DeRozan and Domantas Sabonis' contract, that gives you a lot of freedom with salary cap that you could probably make offers for those guys for relatively good amounts of money. So we shall see. But again, it all depends on like does Kuminga, does Watson, does Mathurin, do these guys actually want to come to Sacramento? Probably not, but still. And then finally, obviously, are the draft picks. So with this, you obviously only have 2 draft picks. You have number 7, and then you have one of the like late 20s picks. Obviously, I said Amari Allen or Allen Graves, whichever is available, but one of those 2 guys would be good. And at the 7th pick, I would take Keaton Wagler. I like him. He's a little bit of a developmental project, but not too bad. I've seen a lot of comparisons with him and Austin Reeves, and I really like that for the Kings. He's a guy who can be a good shooter for them. He's not an undersized guard by any means. He's about 6'5", 6'6". He's already got a good jump shot and things like that, so I think he'll be a really good guard going forward. I don't think that you're going to have like any problems with like, oh, he's an undersized guard, he can't run the team, things like that. So I do think he's a really good guy for the core going forward. The big question is just like, do you want him, or not do you want him in Sacramento? Does he want to be in Sacramento? And if he doesn't want to be in Sacramento, then you're kind of screwed. So a lot of questions with that. But if at that 7th pick, unless someone falls, like someone like Cam Boozer, Caleb Wilson, any of those, dare say, if none of those guys fall, then Keaton Wagler is the guy I would pick at 7. But anyway, yeah, I think that's about it for in terms of like rebuilding the team and things like that. Obviously, re-sign Dylan Cardwell to try and get him as a backup center for the future, but that would leave the team looking just something like this. You would have Keaton Wagler running the point guard position, give him as many reps as possible. You would have Podziemski running the shooting guard position with Keegan Murray at the 3. And then you would get whatever rookie you pick in the late 20s, Amari Allen, Allen Graves, whoever. He would start at that 4 spot. Again, give him as many reps as you can. And then you got Ronaldo Maxwell running the center because I think he's going to be a very good role-playing center for the future. And then just off the bench, Marcus Sasser from the DeMar DeRozan trade, Nick Clifford, give him some minutes. DeAndre Hunter, unless a team really wants to take on his contract, he's going to be playing that backup 3 spot, and then Dylan Cardwell at the 5 spot. And then instead of Amari Allen or Allen Graves from the 4 spot, you would put either Kuminga, Watson, or Mathurin if you were able to sign any of those. So that's what the team would look like. Again, it's not a perfect fix, but it's a good start for a long-term rebuild. And I think that's the main key, is just getting off some of these contracts and getting some developmental minutes going. And with the new lottery and things like that, it's going to be very tough for them. And I feel for Kings fans for the future, but that's kind of what you're going to have to do with this team for a while, is things like this. And hopefully getting off of Keegan Murray's contract in a year or two, because right now he's under trade restriction. Otherwise I would have traded him, but he's under trade restriction, so trade him in a little bit, see if you can get some good value back for him. Maybe get some value back for DeAndre Hunter. If you can get Levine's contract off the books and get value back for him, even if it's just a second round pick, that'd be huge, but it's probably not going to happen. And then just slow burning the rebuild. It's going to be a tall task, Sacramento, I know, but just stick to it. As a Pelicans fan, I can tell you it's a slow burn, but it's going to come out good in the end. Just trust the process. Don't trust the process. Don't Sixers it. Don't 76ers it. Don't trust that process. Just trust the I'm making no sense, but you get what I'm trying to say. I feel for you fans. I feel for you Kings fans. But let me know what you think. Do you think the Kings are going to be able to make any of these moves this offseason? Do you think any team is going to want Sabonis, want Levine, want DeRozan, any of these guys? Or do you think that the Kings are just stuck and they're just going to have to take their team, bring it into next season, and hope for the best? I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. And again, make sure to subscribe and follow and check out all my content with the other NBA teams. And go check out my content covering the NBA playoffs. And until then, y'all, peace.